The sky over the mountains did not turn black or red. It cracked like a giant mirror. The sound was not a boom, but a high scream that hurt the ears of every dog and bird for 100 miles. Shang-Chi stood on the edge of a cliff. He held his arms up high. The 10 rings on his arms were glowing with a light that was not from this earth. They were ancient weapons. They were older than the history books. He was trying to stop a monster from a dark dimension. But the rings did the unexpected. They did not just shoot energy, they pulled. They grabbed the fabric of the air and tore it open. Shang-Chi looked at his hands in shock. The metal rings were spinning so fast they looked like solid gold bands. He felt his feet leave the ground. Gravity stopped working. The wind pulled him toward the crack in the sky. He yelled, but the sound was swallowed by the noise of the tear. He saw his sister on the ground far below. She reached out, but he was already gone. The hole in the world swallowed him whole. He tumbled through a tunnel of flashing lights. It felt like being inside a storm. The rings protected his body. They created a bubble of warm energy. Outside the bubble, reality was breaking. He saw colors he did not know. He saw faces of gods and demons passing by in a blur. Far away in a different universe, the village of Konoha was busy with peace. The Great War was over. Naruto Uzumaki sat in his office in the round red building. He was the leader now. He was the Hokage. He looked to the mountain with the faces of the past leaders carved into the stone. He felt tired but happy. Suddenly, the demon fox inside his stomach woke up. The fox was named Kurama. Kurama growled deep in Naruto's mind. It was a warning. Naruto stood up fast. His chair fell over. He felt a pressure in the air. It was not chakra. Chakra is the energy ninja use for magic. This was different. It felt heavy and metallic. It felt like the weight of a planet. Sasuke Uchiha was in the forest outside the village. He had a special purple eye that could see dimensions. He looked up. The sky above the village twisted. It looked like a whirlpool made of clouds. Purple lightning struck the ground. It did not vanish. It stayed there, crackling on the dirt. Shang-Chi fell out of the sky. He was falling very fast. He saw a village below him. It looked strange. The buildings had round roofs and water towers. He tried to stop his fall. He pushed his fist down. The 10 rings obeyed his will. They fired a blast of golden energy to cushion the landing. The energy hit the air above the village. The impact was massive. It was like a meteor hitting the earth. A shockwave rolled out from the center of the village. Windows shattered in every shop and house. Tiles flew off the roofs. The dust rose up like a wall. Shang-Chi landed in the middle of a street. The ground cracked under his boots. A crater formed around him. He stood up slowly. His suit was torn. He coughed in the dust. The rings hummed on his arms. They were calm now. He looked around. He saw people running away. They wore clothes that looked like they were from a movie. Ninja landed on the roofs around him. They wore green vests and metal headbands. They held knives and throwing stars. They did not speak. They looked ready to kill. Shang-Chi raised his hands. He did not want to fight, but he knew the look in their eyes. They were soldiers, and he was an invader. The dust settled, and the two worlds looked at each other for the first time. The air was thick with tension. A piece of a broken sign fell to the ground with a clatter. That was the signal. The piece was broken. The collision had begun. The sky above Konoha remained a strange, bruised purple long after the dust settled. The crater in the center of the main street was smoking. Shang-Chi stood in the middle of it. The silence was absolute. It was the silence of a predator holding its breath. He looked up at the rooftops. Men and women in green vests and animal masks stood there. They were perfectly still. Their stillness was not peaceful. It was a loaded spring. Shang-Chi held his hands out, palms open. The 10 rings hummed on his forearms, a low vibration that rattled his teeth. They were warm, glowing with a soft amber light. He tried to slow his breathing. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He had fallen through a hole in the world. He knew that. The air tasted different here. It tasted like ozone and pine, sharper than the air in San Francisco. The gravity felt slightly stronger. A ninja with a scar across his nose dropped from a roof. He landed without a sound. It was unnatural. Physics said there should be a thud, a shift of weight. There was nothing. The man held a kunai knife. He barked a command in a language Shang-Chi did not know. The tone was clear. Surrender or die. Shang-Chi shook his head slowly. I don't understand, he said. He kept his voice level. I am not attacking. The ninja did not wait for a translation. He threw the knife. It moved faster than a baseball. Shang-Chi didn't think. His body remembered the years of training. He twisted his torso. The knife whistled past his ear. He heard the thwack as it embedded itself in the asphalt behind him. That was the signal. 4 more ninjas dropped into the crater. They moved in a blur. One came low, sweeping at his legs. Another came high with a sword. Shang-Chi dropped into a crouch. He swept his right arm out. The rings obeyed his will. They didn't fly off. They spun around his wrist, creating a shield of kinetic energy. The sword clanged against the gold metal. The impact sent a shockwave through the ninja's arm. The sword shattered. Shang-Chi pivoted. He used the momentum to kick the low attacker. His foot connected with the man's chest. It should have broken ribs. Instead, the man exploded into a cloud of white smoke. A log of wood clattered to the ground where the man had been. Shang-Chi's eyes widened. Magic. The real attacker appeared from the ground, grabbing Shang-Chi's ankle. Shang-Chi stomped down, sending a pulse of ring energy into the earth. The ground cracked. The hand let go. Shang-Chi jumped back, gaining distance. Okay, he muttered to himself. Magic logs, ground people. Got it. He needed to end this without killing anyone. He pushed his fist forward. The rings shot off his arms, 5 of them. They flew in a tight formation. They hit the ninjas' weapons, knocking them out of their hands. The rings were precise. They didn't hit flesh. They just disarmed. The ninjas looked at their empty hands in shock. Suddenly, the air pressure dropped. A green blur screamed into the crater. Dynamic entry! A boot hit Shang-Chi in the face. It was like being kicked by a horse. Shang-Chi flew backward, crashing through the window of a flower shop. He tumbled over pots and vases, water soaking his suit. He shook his head, spitting out a little blood. He stood up. In the street stood a young man in a green jumpsuit. He had a bowl cut and eyebrows that looked like caterpillars. He was bouncing on the balls of his feet. This was Rock Lee. Lee pointed a finger at Shang-Chi. He shouted something about youth and passion. He didn't use hand signs. He didn't breathe fire. He just looked ready to brawl. Shang-Chi stepped out of the shop. He wiped his mouth. Finally, an opponent he understood. No magic tricks, just martial arts. He fell into his stance. A classic Shaolin posture. Lee's eyes lit up. He recognized the stance. A master recognized a master. Lee charged. They clashed in the center of the street. It was a storm of fists and feet. Lee was fast, incredibly fast. Shang-Chi had to use the rings to boost his own reaction time. Every time Lee punched, Shang-Chi parried. Every time Shang-Chi struck, Lee blocked. The sound of their impact was like gunshots. Pop, pop, pop. Shang-Chi was impressed. This boy had no mystical energy, no glowing rings, but his physical strength was monstrous. Lee spun and delivered a high kick. Shang-Chi ducked. The kick generated a wind that cut the cheek of a bystander 20 feet away. Shang-Chi realized he couldn't win a purely physical fight without hurting the boy. He needed to immobilize him. He commanded the rings. They separated from the melee and circled Li. They clamped onto his arms and legs, pinning him. Li struggled. He grunted. His skin started to turn red. Steam rose from his body. He forced his arms open, fighting the magnetic lock of the cosmic weapons. "Gate of healing, open!" Li roared. A shockwave of green energy exploded from Li. The rings were blown back. They returned to Shang-Chi's arms. Li moved again, but this time he was a blur. He appeared behind Shang-Chi. He punched Shang-Chi into the air. He jumped up, wrapping bandages around Shang-Chi. He spun him around and drove him into the ground. The primary lotus. Shang-Chi hit the pavement. The impact was devastating. If he didn't have the dragon scale armor and the passive protection of the rings, his spine would have snapped. As it was, the breath was knocked out of him. He lay there, gasping. The ninjas cheered, but the fight wasn't over. The rings sensed their master was in danger. They flared with a bright orange light. They lifted Shang-Chi up like a puppet. He didn't consciously do it. The rings were reacting to the hostility of the environment. They unleashed a pulse of energy outward. It knocked Li back. It shattered the windows of every building on the block. The escalation drew the attention of the heavy hitters. From the shadows, a dark figure emerged. He didn't run. He walked. He wore a black cape. He had one arm. This was Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke looked at the devastation. He looked at Shang-Chi, who was hovering a few feet off the ground, supported by the spinning rings. Sasuke's left eye, the Rinnegan, rippled with purple power. He analyzed the intruder. No chakra network, Sasuke observed. Strange energy signature. Ancient. Heavy. Sasuke drew his sword. He channeled lightning chakra into it. The blade chirped like 1,000 birds. He vanished. Shang-Chi didn't see him move. He only felt the killing intent. He raised his arms instinctively. The sword struck the rings. Clang. The sound was deafening. The lightning struggled against the alien metal. Sparks of blue and gold rained down. Sasuke looked Shang-Chi in the eye. Shang-Chi saw a red eye with spinning commas. He felt a sudden wave of dizziness. A genjutsu. Inside his mind, Shang-Chi saw the world burning. He saw this man standing over a pile of bodies. It was an intimidation tactic. But Shang-Chi had trained his mind against the whispers of the dweller in darkness. He focused on his breath. He shattered the illusion. Sasuke blinked. He broke it. Sasuke stepped back. He performed hand signs. Rapid. Blur. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. A massive sphere of fire, big enough to consume a house, rolled towards Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi thrust his palms forward. The rings created a wind tunnel. A cyclone of air met the fire. The flames were sucked into the vortex and shot upward into the sky. The villagers watched in terror. A pillar of fire pierced the clouds. Then, a flash of yellow. Naruto Uzumaki landed between the two fighters. He was in his kurama link mode. He glowed like a miniature sun. His coat was made of pure chakra. "Stop!" Naruto yelled. His voice carried authority that vibrated in the bones. Sasuke lowered his sword but didn't sheath it. "He is dangerous, Naruto. Unknown origin." Naruto looked at Shang-Chi. He looked at the rings. He sensed the energy. It was not evil. It was chaotic, yes, but not malicious. It felt like history. Shang-Chi saw the yellow man. He felt the immense power coming from him. It was overwhelming. It felt like standing next to a nuclear reactor that had a soul. Shang-Chi knew he couldn't win this. Not against these gods. He slowly lowered his arms. The rings slowed their spinning. They returned to their dormant state, hanging loosely on his forearms. He bowed. It was a deep bow, a surrender. Naruto powered down. The yellow glow faded. He stood there in his orange and black cloak. He walked up to Shang-Chi. He didn't look afraid. "Who are you?" Naruto asked. Shang-Chi didn't understand the words, but he understood the gesture. He tapped his chest. "Shang-Chi." Naruto pointed to himself. "Naruto." The Ambu Black Ops surrounded them immediately. A man in a trench coat and a bandana pushed through. Ibiki Morino. He had handcuffs made of chakra-suppressing metal. "We need to take him in, Lord Hokage," Ibiki rumbled. "Standard protocol for dimension breaches." Naruto nodded reluctantly. "Treat him well. He stopped fighting when I asked." Shang-Chi allowed them to cuff him. He didn't resist. He was tired. The rings were heavy. As they led him away, he looked back at the crater. He looked at the boy in the green suit who was being helped up by a man in a wheelchair. He looked at the dark man with the purple eye who was still watching him with suspicion. He was in a world of monsters, and he was the alien. The interrogation room was cold. Shang-Chi sat on a metal chair. The cuffs were tight. They had taken the 10 rings. That was the hardest part. They had tried to pull them off, and the rings had resisted at first, clinging to his skin. But Shang-Chi had mentally released them. He didn't want another explosion. Now, the rings sat in a containment box on the other side of the glass. Ibiki walked in. He didn't bring torture tools. He brought a file. He sat down. "You fight well," Ibiki said. He had a translator ninja with him now. "I had good teachers," Shang-Chi replied. "You use no chakra," Ibiki said. "But your weapons, they eat chakra." Shang-Chi frowned. "They use the energy of the user, or the energy of the universe. I don't know what chakra is." Ibiki wrote that down. "Where do you come from?" "Earth," Shang-Chi said. "But not this Earth. A multiverse theory," Ibiki muttered. "Sasuke will want to hear this." Suddenly, the building shook. The lights flickered. In the containment room next door, the 10 rings were vibrating. They were sensing something. Not the ninja, something else. Shang-Chi stood up, straining against the cuffs. "You need to give them back to me." Ibiki stood up. "Sit down." "No," Shang-Chi said, his voice urgent. "You don't understand. The rings, they are a beacon. When I used them to break the sky, I opened a door. Something followed me." "What followed you?" Ibiki asked, his hand going to his pouch. "The Dweller," Shang-Chi said. "It eats souls. And this place, this village." He looked around with his spiritual senses. He could feel the massive reservoirs of chakra in the people. This place is a buffet. Above the village, the purple sky cracked again. This time, it didn't scream. It whispered. A black sludge began to drip from the tear in the dimension. It fell onto the forest canopy. The trees turned grey and crumbled. In the Hokage's office, Naruto felt the disturbance. Kurama growled in his stomach. "Naruto, that isn't chakra. That is pure negative intent." Sasuke appeared in the office. "The breach is opening again." "Is it the prisoner's friends?" Naruto asked. "I don't think so," Sasuke said. "He seemed afraid of it. During the fight, he kept glancing at the sky." Naruto stood up. He put on his hat. "Get the prisoner. If it's his mess, he knows how to clean it up." Back in the cell, the lights went out completely. The emergency red lights bathed the room in blood. "Let me go," Shang-Chi said calmly, "or everyone here dies." Ibiki looked at the calm in Shang-Chi's eyes. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. Ibiki unlocked the cuffs. "If you try to run," Ibiki said, "I will destroy your mind." "If I wanted to run," Shang-Chi said, rubbing his wrists, "I wouldn't be here." He walked to the glass. He punched it. It didn't break. It was reinforced with chakra. He looked at Ibiki. Ibiki sighed and pressed a button. The glass slid open. Shang-Chi walked to the box. He put his arms through the rings. They snapped onto his forearms with a metallic click. The amber glow returned. He felt whole again. He turned to the door. "Take me to the leader, the one in orange." They ran through the corridors. When they got outside, the sky was dark. The sun was blocked by a massive cloud of swirling shadow. Naruto and Sasuke were waiting on the roof of the Hokage mansion. They watched Shang-Chi arrive. "You said something followed you," Naruto said. The translator struggled to keep up with the wind. "The dweller in darkness," Shang-Chi said. "It feeds on the powerful. And you," he pointed at Naruto. "You are the brightest light I have ever seen. It's coming for you." As he spoke, a massive claw, the size of a building, reached out of the black cloud. It wasn't made of flesh. It was made of shadows and souls. It slammed into the village barrier. The barrier, which had withstood wars, cracked instantly. The siren wailed. The introduction was done. The war for the timeline had begun. The red barrier that covered the Hidden Leaf village did not just break, it dissolved. It was like sugar melting in hot water. The massive claw of shadow pushed through the dome of energy, and the chakra that made up the shield turned into black smoke. The sound was a low, vibrating hum that made teeth ache. The ninja of the sensory division fell to their knees, clutching their heads. They were connected to the barrier. When it died, they felt it die. Blood ran from their noses. On the roof of the Hokage mansion, Naruto Uzumaki watched the sky fall. He had seen wars. He had fought gods from the moon. But this was different. The enemy was not made of chakra. It was made of hunger. The massive cloud above the village began to spin. From the darkness, hundreds of smaller shapes detached. They looked like flying rays, but they had no eyes and their mouths were full of jagged light. They were soul eaters. They dove toward the streets below. Shang-Chi reacted first. He did not wait for orders. He stomped his right foot. The 10 rings on his arms flared with a bright amber light. He punched the air. The rings shot upward, creating a ladder of golden energy. He jumped on them, climbing into the sky to meet the storm. Naruto turned to Sasuke. Sasuke was already analyzing the enemy with his mismatched eyes. His Rinnegan vibrated. "Physical attacks will work," Sasuke said. "But ninjutsu is risky. That thing is absorbing the ambient energy." Naruto nodded. He grabbed his kunai. "I will protect the villagers. You find the big one's weakness." Naruto jumped off the roof. He entered 6-path sage mode. His coat glowed with divine light. He moved so fast he was just a yellow flash. He appeared in the middle of the main street. A soul eater was diving toward a mother and child. Naruto slammed a chakra arm into the creature. The creature screeched. It did not break. It bent around the chakra arm like rubber. It opened its mouth and sucked. The yellow chakra from Naruto's cloak flowed into the beast. The creature grew larger. Its grey skin turned a sickly yellow. Naruto gasped. He severed the chakra arm instantly. The creature flailed, now twice its original size. It lunged at him. Suddenly, a golden ring smashed into the creature's side. The impact sounded like a bell tolling. The creature shrieked in real pain this time. Its body dissolved into black dust. The ring flew back to the sky. Shang-Chi hovered above the street. He controlled the rings with fluid hand movements. He was conducting a symphony of destruction. The rings flew in independent orbits. They smashed through the Soul Eaters, turning them to dust. Shang-Chi yelled down at Naruto. "Do not use energy beams," Shang-Chi shouted. They eat it. You have to hit them with something solid, or use weapons that have a soul. Naruto understood. He deactivated his glowing cloak. He fell back to base form. He relied on his physical strength and his wind-enhanced speed. He summoned shadow clones, but he did not give them Razengans. He gave them kunai and swords. He picked up from fallen ninja. The battle raged across the village. It was a chaotic mess. The ninja were used to fighting other ninja. They were used to trading fireballs and lightning bolts. But every time a Chunin used a fire-style jutsu, the Soul Eaters just swallowed the flames and grew hotter. Every time a Chunin used a water dragon, the beast drank the water and grew heavier. Rock Lee and Might Guy were the most effective. They had no ninjutsu to steal. They tore through the streets like green tornadoes. Rock Lee kicked a Soul Eater so hard its head snapped off before it could regenerate. Guy was using his nunchucks, smashing the shadow monsters into the pavement. But there were too many enemies. For every one they killed, 3 more fell from the cloud. In the hospital, Sakura Haruno was overwhelmed. The wounded were pouring in, but they had no cuts. They had no broken bones. They were just pale. Their eyes were open but empty. Their hearts beat slowly, but there was no mind behind the eyes. Sakura placed her glowing green hands on a patient's chest. She tried to push healing chakra into him. The chakra entered the body and vanished. It was like pouring water into a bottomless pit. "It is not an injury," Sakura whispered. Her hands shook. "Their souls are gone." Outside the window, a Soul Eater smashed through the glass. It slithered over the beds. It wanted the weak. Sakura turned. She didn't use magic. She channeled all her chakra into her fist for a physical release. She punched the creature. The impact blew out the back wall of the hospital. The creature exploded into dust, but the dust settled on the patients. Where the dust touched skin, grey patches appeared. The corruption was spreading. High above, Sasuke Uchiha flew on his Susanoo. The giant purple avatar had wings. Sasuke flew toward the massive tear in the sky. He wanted to cut the head off the snake. The dweller in darkness was emerging. It looked like a dragon, but wrong. It had too many limbs. Its face was a shifting mask of tentacles. Sasuke drew his Susanoo sword. He coated it in amaterasu, the black flames that never extinguish. He slashed at the dweller's neck. The black flames hit the creature's skin. The dweller did not scream. It turned its head. It looked at the flames. Then the flames detached from the creature and floated in the air. The dweller opened its mouth and inhaled. The amaterasu, the most powerful fire jutsu in existence, was sucked down its throat. The creature burped a cloud of black smoke that smelled like burning ozone. Sasuke's eyes widened. This thing defied the laws of the shinobi world. It didn't just absorb chakra, it ate the fundamental concepts of their power. The dweller looked at Sasuke. It swatted him. The blow was casual, like a man swatting a fly. But the force was absolute. The Susanoo cracked. The purple armor shattered into glass shards. Sasuke was thrown downward. He crashed through the Hokage monument, destroying the stone face of the first Hokage. Shang-Chi saw Sasuke fall. He knew they were losing. He dove down, landing next to Naruto in the village square. "We cannot win this way," Shang-Chi said. He was breathing hard. Sweat dripped from his nose. His suit was torn. "We need to close the door." "How?" Naruto asked. He was fighting 2 Soul Eaters with a metal staff he had found. "The rings opened it," Shang-Chi said. "The rings can close it. But I need time, and I need to be close to the rift." Naruto looked up at the sky. The rift was thousands of feet up, and the sky was choked with monsters. "I can get you there," Naruto said. "But I have to use Kurama's power. If I use it, they will try to eat me. You are the bait, Shang-Chi said. It was a cold, tactical assessment. If you light up, they will swarm you. That clears the path for me to fly up behind them. Naruto grinned. It was a sharp, dangerous grin. So I just have to be the tastiest meal in the universe. I can do that. Naruto closed his eyes. He went deep into his mind. He spoke to the Nine Tails. Kurama, we need to go full power. No holding back. You are an idiot, Kurama growled. That thing wants to eat me specifically. I am a mass of pure chakra. I am a wagyu steak to that monster. Do you have a better idea? Naruto asked. Kurama paused. No, let's do it. But if we die, I am haunting you. Naruto opened his eyes. He clasped his hands. Kurama mode. The explosion of power was blinding. A golden avatar of the nine-tailed fox materialized in the village square. It was the size of a mountain. It had 9 tails made of flowing chakra. The light pushed back the shadows. Every soul eater in the sky stopped. They turned their heads toward the golden fox. The hunger in the air became heavy. It felt like gravity had doubled. The dweller in darkness roared. It ignored the broken Susanoo. It ignored the tiny ninjas. It wanted the fox. The swarm descended on Naruto. Thousands of monsters diving at once. Naruto held his ground. The fox avatar roared and swiped its claws. Each swipe destroyed dozens of monsters, but they were like ants covering a lion. They bit into the chakra avatar. They started to drain it. Now, Naruto screamed mentally. Shang-Chi launched himself. He did not glow. He kept his power contained. He flew straight up, weaving through the chaos. The monsters ignored him. They were too focused on the feast below. Shang-Chi reached the tear in the sky. It was cold here. The void beyond the tear was absolute nothingness. He positioned himself in the center of the crack. He held his arms out. The 10 rings spun off his arms. They formed a perfect circle. Shang-Chi closed his eyes. He visualized the great protector dragon. He visualized the seal. Close, he whispered. The rings began to spin counterclockwise. They generated a frequency that cancelled the vibration of the portal. The crack began to seal. The edges of reality started to stitch themselves back together. The dweller in darkness felt the door closing. It panicked. It was halfway through the portal. If the door closed, it would be cut in half, or it would be trapped here. It made a choice. It didn't retreat. It lunged forward. It separated its main body from the portal, forcing itself fully into the Naruto universe. The portal snapped shut behind it, cutting off its supply line of minions. The sky healed. But now, the great devourer was trapped in the cage with the prey, and it was angry. The dweller dropped from the sky. It landed on the fox avatar. Its tentacles wrapped around the golden chakra. It didn't just bite. It merged. Its shadow skin started to fuse with the golden chakra. Naruto screamed. It wasn't physical pain. It was the pain of his soul being dissolved. In his mindscape, the sewer where Kurama lived began to flood with black sludge. The sludge poured through the bars of the cage. It touched Kurama's fur. The fox howled. The black sludge burned like acid. Naruto, Kurama yelled. Cut the link. It's infecting the chakra source. I can't, Naruto yelled back. He was paralyzed. The dweller was overriding his control. On the ground, Sasuke saw what was happening. He dragged himself out of the rubble. He coughed up blood. He saw the golden fox turning black. Veins of corruption were spreading through the avatar. If that thing takes the 9 tails, Sasuke thought, this world is over. Sasuke activated his Rinnegan one last time. He couldn't swap places with the monster. It was too heavy. He swapped places with a piece of rubble near Naruto's real body, located inside the avatar's head. Sasuke appeared inside the golden chakra construct. He saw Naruto kneeling, his eyes rolled back, black veins crawling up his neck. Sasuke drew his sword. He didn't attack the monster. He attacked Naruto. He drove the sword through Naruto's shoulder. The pain woke Naruto up. "Wake up, loser!" Sasuke screamed. Naruto gasped. The shock broke his concentration. The Kurama avatar flickered and vanished. The sudden disappearance of the avatar surprised the dweller. It fell to the ground, crashing into the village center. It roared in frustration. It had tasted the ultimate power, and it had been snatched away. But it had taken a bite. On the ground, Naruto lay convulsing. The black veins didn't disappear. They were pulsing. Shang-Chi landed next to them. He looked at Naruto. He looked at the dweller, which was now rising from the dust, towering over the village buildings. "He is infected," Shang-Chi said. He knelt by Naruto. He placed a ring on Naruto's chest. The ring glowed warm. It held back the black veins, but it couldn't remove them. "The creature," Sasuke said, pointing. The dweller was changing. It had absorbed a significant amount of Kurama's chakra. It was no longer just a shadow monster. It grew 9 tails. They were made of oily black smoke. It grew a fox-like snout, but with too many eyes. It roared, and the sound was a distorted version of Kurama's roar mixed with the screech of the damned. It had adapted. It had learned how to use chakra. The dweller opened its mouth. A tailed beast bomb began to form, but it wasn't red and blue. It was black and grey. It was a sphere of anti-life. "It's going to wipe out the village," Sasuke said. He had no chakra left to stop it. Shang-Chi stood up. He looked at the monster. He looked at the village behind him. He looked at the ninja who was standing frozen in fear. "Get him out of here," Shang-Chi said to Sasuke. "What?" Sasuke asked. "Take Naruto and go. Gather your people. Retreat," Shang-Chi commanded. His voice was the voice of a general. "We don't run," Sasuke spat. "You do today," Shang-Chi said. "That bomb will kill everyone in a 10-mile radius. I can't stop it, but I can contain it." Shang-Chi turned to the monster. He walked toward it. He didn't run. He walked. "Go," Shang-Chi yelled. Sasuke gritted his teeth. He knew the tactical reality. He grabbed Naruto. He grabbed Sakura, who had just arrived. "All shinobi, retreat to the Hokage Rock. Move." The order broke the spell. The ninja grabbed the civilians and ran. They ran toward the mountain, away from the center of the village. Shang-Chi stood alone in the empty street. The black sphere of destruction was fully formed. The dweller fired it. The beam of black energy tore up the ground. It moved toward Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi took a deep breath. He remembered his mother's village. He remembered the air. He remembered the flow. He pushed all 10 rings forward. He didn't try to block the beam. He caught it. The rings spun around the black energy. They caught the tip of the beam and began to spin it. Shang-Chi spun with them. He turned his body, guiding the massive force of destruction. He was wrestling a hurricane. The energy burned his hands. It burned his suit, but he didn't let go. He guided the beam around his body, spinning it like a ribbon. "Return to sender," Shang-Chi gritted out. He completed the rotation and pushed. The beam curved. It flew back toward the dweller. The monster didn't expect its own attack to return. The black beam hit the dweller in the chest. The explosion was silent. A sphere of white light expanded, swallowing the monster in the center of the village. Sasuke, watching from the mountain, shielded his eyes. When the light faded, the center of Konoha was gone. There was a crater a mile wide. The buildings were gone. The ramen shop was gone. The academy was gone. In the center of the crater, the dweller was still there. It was wounded. Half its body was blown away, but it was regenerating. The chakra it had stolen from Kurama was healing it. Shang-Chi was nowhere to be seen. Wait. Sasuke zoomed in with his eye. Shang-Chi was lying at the edge of the crater. He was alive, but barely. His arms were black and blue. The rings were scattered in the dirt, their light dim. The dweller roared. It was a roar of victory. It began to spread its corruption into the ground. The crater turned grey. The trees on the edge of the crater turned grey and died. The land itself was dying. The village was lost. Sasuke looked at Naruto. Naruto was unconscious. The black marks on his face were stable, but they were there. The hero of the ninja world was compromised. Their strongest weapon was broken. General Kakashi Hatake stepped forward. He looked at the devastation. He looked at the refugees huddled on the mountain. "We leave," Kakashi said. His voice was hollow. "We evacuate to the land of iron. Konoha has fallen." It was the first time in history the hidden leaf had been truly abandoned. The ninja picked up their wounded. They picked up their pride, and they walked away into the forest. Down in the crater, the dweller in darkness sat on the ruins of the Hokage's office. It closed its eyes and began to digest the reality around it. It sent roots deep into the earth, tapping into the ley lines of the planet. The silence of a grave. The heroes had not won. They had survived, and the world had changed forever. The age of shinobi was over. The age of shadow had begun. The internal logic of the world had been violated. A parasite was now the king, and the immune system of the planet was failing. The wind in the land of iron did not howl. It hissed. It cut through the thickest coats and froze the moisture in a man's nose instantly. The refugees from Konoha were not dressed for this. They were people of the fire country, used to warm forest and humidity. Now they huddled in grey tents, set up on the frozen plains of the samurai territories. The smoke from their cooking fires rose up and was snatched away by the gale. There was no laughter. There was no training. There was only the sound of coughing and the sharp metallic clank of samurai armor as the locals patrolled the perimeter. General Mifune stood on the balcony of his fortress, looking down at the sea of tents. He was an old man, hardened by steel and discipline. He did not like ninja. He did not like their magic or their wars, but he could not turn them away, not after what he had seen. The reports from the south were impossible to believe, yet the scouts had died to bring them. A darkness was spreading from the crater that used to be Konoha. It was not a metaphor. The land was turning grey. The grass died. The animals died. And then they got up again. Inside the fortress, the war room was dim. The only light came from a holographic map projected by a device from the Cloud Village. The remaining Kage were there. Gaara of the Sand stood with his arms crossed, his face a mask of stone. The Raikage paced back and forth, his muscles twitching with suppressed rage. The Tsuchikage floated a few inches off the floor, his back pain forgotten in the face of extinction. Sasuke Uchiha stood at the head of the table. He looked exhausted. His cloak was tattered. He had not slept in 3 days. Beside him stood Shang-Chi. The outsider looked out of place in his red dragon-scale suit, which he had patched with standard ninja mesh tape. He held the 10 rings in his hands, polishing them slowly with a rag. It was a nervous habit. "We should strike now," the Raikage boomed. His voice echoed off the stone walls. "We gather the cloud's chakra cannons. We gather every tailed beast bomb we can muster. We vaporize that crater." "No," Shang-Chi said softly. He did not look up from his rings. The Raikage stopped pacing. He stared at the man. "You are the stranger who brought this upon us. You do not give orders here." "It is not an order," Shang-Chi said, looking up. His eyes were tired but clear. "It is a fact. The dweller feeds on spiritual energy. Chakra is spiritual energy mixed with physical stamina. If you fire a cannon at it, you are just feeding it breakfast. It will get bigger, it will get stronger, and it will open the door again." Gaara looked at Shang-Chi. "Then how do we kill it?" "Sand is physical. I can crush it. It absorbs the will behind the sand," Shang-Chi explained. "In my world, we fight these things with pure intention, with chi. It is not about molding energy to change reality. It is about aligning your breath with the flow of the universe. It is passive, not active. When you use ninjutsu, you force the world to obey you. That friction creates heat. The dweller eats that heat." Sasuke stepped forward. "He is right. I hit it with Amaterasu. It drank the flames. The only thing that hurt it was physical impact. But even then, it adapts. So we are defenseless." The two Chikachi grunted. "No," Shang-Chi said. He put the rings back on his arms. They clicked into place. "We change the way we fight. We stop being wizards. We start being warriors." The door to the war room opened. Sakura Haruno entered. She looked pale. She was wiping her hands on a towel. They were stained with black ichor. "How is he?" Sasuke asked. The room went silent. The fate of the world rested on the answer. "He is awake," Sakura said. Her voice trembled. "But he is not Naruto. Not right now. The infection, it has bridged the gap between his biology and the fox. The seal is dissolving, but not releasing the fox. It is merging them." Shang-Chi stood up. "Take me to him." They walked through the stone corridors of the fortress to the medical wing. The air smelled of antiseptic and rust. In the isolation room, Naruto Uzumaki sat on the edge of the bed. He was not restrained. He did not need to be. He looked too heavy to move. His appearance had changed. The whisker marks on his cheeks were thick and black, like jagged tattoos. His right arm, the prosthetic one, was gone. In its place was a limb made of solidified shadow, twitching like a spider leg. His eyes were the most terrifying part. One was blue. The other was a vertical slit, glowing with a sickly violet light. Naruto looked up as they entered. He didn't smile. The warmth that usually radiated from him was gone. The room felt cold. "I can hear it," Naruto said. His voice sounded double, as if someone was whispering under his words. "Hear what?" Sasuke asked. "The hunger," Naruto said. He tapped his chest. "It is calling to me. It thinks I am its child." Shang-Chi approached the bed. He did not flinch at the sight of the corruption. He had seen men possessed by demons before. He reached out and took Naruto's human hand. He checked the pulse. It was slow, too slow. "The dweller is using you as an anchor," Shang-Chi said. "It needs a massive energy source to stay in this dimension without the portal. You are the battery." "I know," Naruto whispered. "Kurama is fighting it. But Kurama is tired. Every time I try to mold chakra, the shadow eats it. I am useless." "You are not useless," Shang-Chi said firmly. He looked Naruto in the eye. "You are just fighting the wrong way. You are trying to overpower a black hole. You cannot fill a hole that has no bottom. You have to starve it." "How?" Naruto asked. "You have to stop using chakra," Shang-Chi said. "That is impossible," Sakura interjected. "Chakra is life. If he stops using it, he dies. The shinobi system depends on it." "Then the system must die for the man to live," Shang-Chi said. He turned to Sasuke. "And for you to win this war." An alarm blared throughout the fortress. It was a low, mournful horn, the signal for an attack. General Mifune ran into the hallway. "They are here," The dead are walking. The group ran to the balcony. The snowfield below was no longer white. It was moving. Thousands of figures were trudging through the drifts. They were not the swift, agile reanimations of the Edo Tensei. These were stiff. Their arms were outstretched. They hopped in unison. Their skin was blue-gray. Jiangshi, Shang-Chi breathed. Hopping vampires. The dweller has reanimated the corpses from the Konoha ruins. Ninja, from the refugee camp, leaped over the walls to engage. A squad of jonin from the stone village fired a volley of rock bullets. The rocks hit the lead Jiangshi. The corpses didn't even flinch. They absorbed the kinetic impact and hopped faster. A mist ninja cast a water dragon. The dragon crashed into the horde. The water turned black on contact. The Jiangshi drank it through their skin. They grew larger, their muscles swelling. "Stop," Shang-Chi yelled, jumping over the railing. "Do not use ninjutsu." He fell 10 stories and landed in the snow. He didn't use a chakra cushion. He used the rings to create a localized gravity displacement. He landed soft. The horde was on him. A reanimated Hyuga clan member, his eyes white and dead, struck at Shang-Chi. The gentle fist style. But instead of injecting chakra, the corpse was trying to suck it out. Shang-Chi deflected the strike with a circular motion. He didn't block. He guided the hand past him. He stepped in and delivered a palm strike to the corpse's chest. He didn't use energy. He used pure mechanics. The ribs shattered. The corpse fell back, unable to balance. The rings flew off his arms. They didn't glow with energy this time. They were dull metal. Shang-Chi was using them as blunt instruments. They smashed skulls. They broke knees. Sasuke landed beside him. He had his sword drawn. He didn't activate his eye. He fought like a samurai. Cut. Parry. Thrust. It was harder. He was slower without the lightning reflex enhancement. But it worked. The corpses he cut stayed down. The problem was numbers. There were thousands of them. And among them were monsters. Chimeras created by the dweller. A giant snake with human arms. A boar with the face of a man. On the wall, Rock Lee and Might Guy watched. They were vibrating with energy. "This is our time," Guy shouted. "No ninjutsu. Just the power of youth." Guy and Lee dove into the fray. They were the perfect counters. They used no external chakra. They generated force through muscles and leverage. They tore a path through the Jiangshi. Lee spun like a top, kicking heads off. Guy was a green demon, punching holes through the chimeras. But the dweller was smart. It knew the weakness of the physical fighters. Fatigue. The Jiangshi didn't tire. They didn't feel pain. They just kept coming. And every time a ninja slipped up and used a substitution jutsu or a clone, the nearest corpses got stronger. Shang-Chi saw the line breaking. The stone ninja were panicking. They were trying to create earth walls. The walls were turning into black sludge that suffocated the defenders. "We need to push them back," Shang-Chi yelled to Sasuke. "I can't clear them all," Sasuke gritted out. He severed a head, but another corpse grabbed his cloak. He kicked it away. Suddenly, a pulse of pressure swept across the battlefield. It wasn't chakra. It was something else. A heavy, dominating will. Naruto stood on the wall of the fortress. He had dragged himself out of bed. He was wearing tattered hospital robes. The wind whipped his hair. He raised his human hand. He didn't form a Rasengan. He didn't weave signs. He remembered what Shang-Chi said, a line with the flow. Naruto closed his eyes. He felt the wind. He felt the cold. He felt the nature energy of the world, not the sage mode energy he usually sucked in. He felt the connection between things. He visualized the wind not as a weapon, but as a wall. Push. He thrust his palm forward. He didn't use chakra. He used the raw physical displacement of the air amplified by the shadow arm. The shadow arm stretched, mimicking his movement, but on a massive scale. A shockwave of pure air pressure hit the center of the horde. It wasn't magical wind. It was just moved air. It knocked 500 corpses off their feet. They tumbled back into the snow. Naruto collapsed, coughing blood. The effort had strained his damaged soul. Shang-Chi saw the opening. Now, retreat to the fortress. Seal the gates. The ninja fell back. They dragged their wounded. Guy and Lee covered the rear, kicking the front line of corpses into piles of broken limbs. They scrambled up the walls. The massive iron gates of Mifun's fortress slammed shut. The Zhangshi slammed against the metal. They scratched and clawed, but the iron held. Iron has no chakra. It offered them no food. Inside the courtyard, the mood was grim. The snow was stained with blood. Dozens were dead. Shang-Chi walked over to where Sakura was treating Naruto. Naruto was pale, shivering violently. "You did it," Shang-Chi said. "You moved the air without molding it." "It felt heavy," Naruto rasped, "like lifting a mountain with my mind." "That is the beginning," Shang-Chi said. "You touched the Tao, but the cost is high." Sasuke cleaned his blade. "This is not a victory. We are besieged. We have no food supplies for a long siege. And that thing, the dweller, it is getting smarter." "How?" Gaara asked, stepping down from the command post. Sasuke pointed to the south. "Look." They looked over the wall. In the distance, toward the ruins of Konoha, a structure was rising. It wasn't a building. It was a tower made of twisted black roots. It spiraled up into the clouds, piercing the sky. "It looks like the God Tree," Sasuke said. "It is," Shang-Chi realized with horror. "It found the roots of the divine tree deep underground. It is growing a new one. But instead of bearing fruit, it's acting as an antenna," Sasuke finished. "The infinite Tsukuyomi reflected off the moon to trap people in dreams. This will suck the soul out of every living thing on the planet instantly," Shang-Chi said. "If that tower reaches the operational height, it won't need to hunt us. It will just drink the world dry like a milkshake. We have to knock it down," the Raikage said. "We can't get close," Sasuke said. "The closer we get to the crater, the denser the corruption. Any jutsu used within 10 miles of that tower will be absorbed instantly. Then we walk," Shang-Chi said. "We walk in. We use steel. We use fists. And we bring the only thing that can poison it." "What?" Naruto asked. "You," Shang-Chi said. "Me? You are the battery," Shang-Chi said. "You are the only one compatible with its frequency. If we can get you to the core of that tower, into the heart of the dweller, you can reverse the flow." "You want me to let it eat me?" Naruto asked. "I want you to feed it something it can't digest," Shang-Chi said. "The rings." Shang-Chi took off the 10 rings. He held them out. They were heavy, ancient, and terrifying. "These rings are not just weapons," Shang-Chi said. "They are prisons. My father used them to conquer. I use them to protect. But their original purpose, they were made to contain cosmic threats. If you wear them and you enter the dweller, you can use the rings to lock the entity inside your own seal." "Inside me?" Naruto looked at his stomach. "With Kurama. It's a cage match," Shang-Chi said grimly. "The fox versus the dweller, and the rings are the referee. And if I lose?" Naruto asked. "Then the dweller gets the 9 tails, the rings, and your body," Shang-Chi said, "and becomes a god that will eat this entire universe." Naruto looked at the rings. He looked at Sasuke. He looked at the scared refugees in the courtyard. He took the rings. They were huge on his hands. They resized instantly to fit his fingers. He felt a surge of alien power. It wasn't warm like chakra. It was cold, precise, and infinite. "I have a plan," Sasuke said. He looked at the map. "But it requires a distraction. A big one." "How big?" the Raikage asked. "Suicide mission big," Sasuke said. "We need the entire shinobi alliance to march on the front gate. We need the samurai. We need everyone. We need to make the dweller think we are desperate. We need to make it think we are offering up a feast, while it is distracted eating the army." Shang-Chi continued. "A small team infiltrates the routes," Sasuke said. "Me, Shang-Chi, Naruto, and the taijutsu specialists." Rock Lee stepped forward. He was bandaged and bleeding, but his thumb was up. "The green beast is ready to die for his springtime of youth." "It is not just about dying, Lee," Shang-Chi said softly. "It is about discipline. If one person uses ninjutsu near that tower, the plan fails. If one person wavers and lets their spirit flare, the dweller will sense us. We have to be ghosts." "I can mask our presence," Sasuke said. "My eye can shift us between the spaces of reality for short bursts. But I cannot fight while doing it." "I will be your shield," Shang-Chi said. The decision was made. The sun began to set over the land of iron. It was a blood-red sunset. The refugees were mobilized. Weapons were distributed. Not magic scrolls, but spears, swords, and shields. The shinobi were returning to the Dark Ages. Naruto stood apart from the group, staring at the distant black tower. He adjusted the 10 rings on his arms. He could feel Kurama inside him, silent and brooding. "We are going to die, Kit," Kurama said. "Maybe," Naruto thought back. "But we are going to give it a hell of a stomachache." Shang-Chi walked up to Naruto. "One thing," Shang-Chi said. "When you use the rings, do not try to control them. They have a will. Let them guide you. If you fight them, they will break your arms." "Got it," Naruto said. "Like riding a toad." Shang-Chi smiled, a rare, fleeting expression. "Sure, like a toad." The gates of the fortress opened. The army marched out. It was a silent march. No war cries, no drums, just the crunch of snow and the rattle of steel. They marched toward the grey horizon, toward the tower that scraped the sky. The march of the doomed. The pieces were set. The power systems had been analyzed, deconstructed, and forced into a terrified compromise. The final gambit was in motion. The world held its breath, waiting to see if the ninja could learn to be human again before the end arrived. The snow on the battlefield was no longer white. It had been churned into a slush of grey mud and frozen blood. The silence that had held the army of the Shinobi Alliance together shattered the moment the first arrow flew. It was not a chakra-infused arrow. It was simple wood and iron, fired from the bow of a samurai. It struck the frozen earth 10 feet in front of the advancing horde of Jiangshi. The dead did not flinch. They did not scream. They simply hopped forward, a tidal wave of blue skin and stiff limbs moving with a terrifying rhythmic thud that shook the ground. General Mifune drew his sword. The sound of steel leaving the scabbard was the only signal needed. 5,000 samurai and 10,000 stripped-down ninja charged. There were no battle cries. Screaming wasted breath, and they needed every ounce of oxygen for the slaughter. They met the wave of corpses with a sickening crunch. It was medieval warfare in a world that had forgotten how to fight it. Swords hacked at limbs that did not bleed. Spears impaled bodies that did not feel pain. On the eastern flank, the 4th Raikage fought with brass knuckles. He had no lightning armor to speed his reflexes. He relied on the sheer density of his muscles. He punched the head off a reanimated cloud ninja. The skull shattered like pottery, but the body kept moving, its arms latching onto the Raikage's waist, trying to drain his stamina. The Raikage roared and tore the corpse in half, throwing the pieces into the crowd. He was panting. Steam rose from his shoulders. Without chakra reinforcement, his body was accumulating lactic acid at a normal human rate. He was already tired. Behind the lines, the Tsuchikage hovered on a platform carried by 4 strong earth ninja. He couldn't fly. He held a pile of heavy stones in his lap. He threw them with precision, cracking skulls. It was pathetic compared to his particle style, but it was all he had. Every time a ninja fell, the Jiangshi swarmed them. They didn't eat the flesh. They sucked the residual life force out of the dying, their grey skin flushing with a momentary pink hue before returning to the pallor of death. While the army died to buy them seconds, the strike team moved through the dark veins of the earth. They had entered through a fissure miles away from the crater. The root system of the new god tree had displaced the soil, creating a network of tunnels that pulsed with a low, sick heartbeat. The walls were lined with black wood that felt like cold, wet skin. Sasuke led the way. He was walking blindly. He had to keep his Rinnegan active to maintain a dimensional veil around the group. But he couldn't look at the environment with it, or the visual data of the corruption would overwhelm his brain. He navigated by sound and the echoes of air currents. Blood trickled from his left eye, staining his cheek. He did not wipe it away. To move his hand was to risk breaking the seal. Shang-Chi walked behind him, his hand hovering near Sasuke's shoulder to guide him. Shang-Chi felt the weight of the air increasing with every step. It wasn't just gravity, it was spiritual pressure. The dweller in darkness was sitting at the center of this web, and its hunger was a physical force that pushed against their chests. Naruto walked in the center. The 10 rings on his arms were silent. They felt heavy, like lead weights. He kept his hands unclenched. He could feel the vibration of the roots through the soles of his sandals. The roots were drinking. He could hear the screams of the earth itself. It was a high, thin sound that only he, with his connection to nature energy, could hear. It made him want to vomit. Rock Lee and Might Guy brought up the rear. They were walking backwards, watching the tunnel behind them. They moved with absolute silence, rolling their feet from heel to toe to dampen the sound. Guy's leg was hurting. The phantom pain from his old injury flared in the presence of such unnatural energy. He ignored it. He bit his tongue until he tasted copper to stay sharp. They reached a cavern that used to be the foundation of the Hokage's mansion. The familiar stone faces of the previous leaders were gone, ground into dust by the massive black trunk that rose through the center of the chamber. The trunk was wider than a stadium. It wasn't smooth. It was writhing. Faces pressed out against the bark, the souls of the villagers who had been consumed in the first blast. Sasuke stopped. He dropped to one knee, gasping. The veil flickered and died. "I can't hold it," Sasuke whispered. "The density is too high." Shang-Chi scanned the room. "We are here. The heart is inside that trunk." As if responding to his voice, the trunk split open. It didn't crack like wood. It peeled back like wet meat. The sound was wet and tearing. From the opening, the dweller in darkness emerged. It had changed again. It was no longer just a shadow monster. It had assumed a form that mocked humanity. It stood 20 feet tall, humanoid, wrapped in armor made of black bone. Its face was a smooth white mask with a single vertical slit in the center. Behind it, 9 tails of black smoke drifted lazily, caressing the walls of the cavern. It clapped its hands. The sound was like thunder in the enclosed space. "Welcome," the dweller spoke. Its voice was a chorus of thousands. "I have been waiting for the delivery." It looked directly at Naruto. Or rather, it looked at the rings on Naruto's arms. "You brought my keys," the dweller said. Shang-Chi stepped forward. He fell into a combat stance, not the aggressive stance of a striker, but the fluid, circular stance of a Tai Chi master. "They are not keys," Shang-Chi said. "They are the lock." The dweller laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound. "You think Wenwu understood what he held. You think you do. Those rings are not weapons of earth. They are beacons. They call out to the great hunger in the stars. And I have answered." The dweller pointed a finger. A beam of black energy, thin as a needle, shot toward Naruto. Guy moved. He didn't think. He opened the sixth gate in a microsecond. The green aura flared, pushing back the shadows for a fraction of a second. He intercepted the beam with his nunchucks. The weapon shattered instantly. The beam punched through Guy's shoulder. Guy flew back, hit in the wall. He didn't scream. He slumped, his arm hanging by a thread of skin. The wound didn't bleed. It turned grey and spread like frost. "Sensei!" Lee screamed. He launched himself at the dweller. Lee was fast, faster than sound. He delivered a kick to the dweller's mask. The impact created a shockwave that dusted the ceiling. The dweller didn't move. It didn't even flinch. Lee's leg was stopped inches from the mask by a barrier of invisible pressure. "Physical force requires mass," the dweller lectured. "I have the mass of a star. You are a gnat hitting a windshield." The dweller flicked his wrist. Lee was blasted sideways by a wave of telekinetic force. He crashed into the roots, tangled in the black wood. Sasuke drew his sword. He looked at Shang-Chi. "Now." Sasuke threw his sword. He swapped places with it in mid-air, appearing directly behind the dweller's neck. It was a desperate move. He used the last dregs of his ocular power. He drove a kunai infused with wind nature into the back of the dweller's neck. The blade snapped. The skin of the creature was harder than diamond. The dweller reached back and grabbed Sasuke by the throat. It lifted him up. "The Uchiha," the dweller mused. "Your eyes are delicious, spices from an ancient bloodline." It tightened its grip. Sasuke kicked, but his strength was failing. The purple light in his eye began to dim as the creature drained him through physical contact. Naruto stood frozen. He saw Guy dying. He saw Lee trapped. He saw Sasuke being strangled. The rage built up in his chest. The familiar red heat of the Nine Tails bubbled up. "Don't!" Shang-Chi's voice cut through the red haze. "Do not use the anger. That is what it eats." Naruto looked at Shang-Chi. "What do I do?" "Breathe," Shang-Chi said. He walked toward the monster that was strangling Sasuke. He walked calmly. "Connect the rings. Feel the hum. They are not yours. They are not mine. They belong to the flow." Shang-Chi closed his eyes. He extended his hand. He wasn't wearing the rings, but he was their master. He resonated with them. On Naruto's arms, the 10 rings woke up. They didn't glow orange or gold. They turned a deep, serene blue. They spun violently, dragging Naruto's arms forward. Naruto let go. He let the rings pull him. He flew across the room, led by the weapons. The dweller saw the blue light. For the first time, the slit in its mask widened in surprise. It dropped Sasuke. It raised both hands to catch Naruto. Naruto didn't punch. He didn't kick. He stopped inches from the creature's chest. The rings spun off his arms and orbited the dweller's torso. They expanded, creating a cage of spinning blue light. The dweller roared. It pushed against the light. The shadows flared, trying to eat the rings. But the rings were not emitting energy. They were absorbing it. They were spinning in reverse, creating a vacuum. Shang-Chi shouted the command. "Bind!" Naruto clapped his hands together. The rings contracted. They slammed into the dweller's armor, pinning its arms to its sides. The creature struggled, its black tails lashing out, cracking the walls. Naruto landed on the ground. He was panting. He felt drained. The rings were leeching his stamina to maintain the hold. "We have it," Naruto yelled. "Kill it now." Shang-Chi shook his head. He looked sad. "We cannot kill it. It is too dense. We have to send it back." Shang-Chi ran to Naruto. He placed his hands on Naruto's back. "We are going to open the door," Shang-Chi said, "but not to the dark dimension. We are going to open a door to Talo." "The dragon dimension?" Naruto asked. "Yes," Shang-Chi said. "The Great Protector can eat this thing, but we need a bridge. We need enough power to punch a hole through the multiverse from inside a dampening field." "We don't have that kind of power," Sasuke gasped, clutching his throat. Naruto looked at his stomach. He looked at the seal. "Yes, we do," Naruto said softly. He closed his eyes. He went into the sewer. He stood in front of the cage. Kurama was lying there, huge and tired. The water in the sewer was low. "Kurama," Naruto said. "I know what you are thinking," the fox said. "It's a bad idea. If you mix my chakra with those alien rings and try to teleport, we might vaporize the soul." "Do it," Naruto said. Kurama grinned, a feral, sharp grin. "Fine, let's go out with a bang." Naruto opened his eyes. He didn't glow yellow. He didn't turn into a chakra monster. He simply unlocked the gate. All of the Nine-Tails' remaining chakra flooded into Naruto's system. But instead of coating him, Naruto pushed it all into the rings. The 10 rings screamed. The metal turned white hot. The blue light turned into a blinding white star. The dweller screamed too. The influx of raw, chaotic tailed beast chakra was incompatible with its digestion. It was like feeding a fire with gasoline that was also liquid nitrogen. It burned and froze at the same time. Shang-Chi saw the instability. The geometry of the room was bending. The walls were melting. "Naruto," Shang-Chi yelled. "You have to aim it. Visualize the village. Visualize the bamboo forest." Naruto tried. He tried to picture the peaceful realm Shang-Chi had described, but he had never been there. He didn't know the frequency. The dweller seized the moment of hesitation. It didn't try to escape the rings. It hacked the connection. It sent a pulse of black will back through the rings, into Naruto. It found the doubt in Naruto's heart. It found the fear of losing his friends. And then it found something else. It found the dimensional coordinate of the ring's origin. Not Talo, but the place the rings were truly forged. The dark cosmic forge of a species long dead. The dweller laughed. "Thank you," it whispered in Naruto's mind. The dweller reversed the polarity. Instead of being pushed out, it pulled. The white light turned purple. A tear in reality opened behind the dweller. But it wasn't a portal to a bamboo forest. It was a portal to a void of static and dead stars. The vacuum was instant and violent. It sucked everything in the room towards it. Sasuke stabbed his sword into the ground to hold on. Lee grabbed a root. Guy dug his fingers into the stone. Shang-Chi was lifted off his feet. He flew toward the portal. "Shang-Chi!" Naruto yelled. He lunged and grabbed Shang-Chi's ankle. Naruto was anchored by the rings, which were clamped onto the dweller, which was clamped onto the floor. They formed a chain. The dweller, the rings, Naruto, Shang-Chi. The portal widened. It began to pull the god tree itself. The roots ripped out of the earth. The cavern began to collapse. The dweller looked at the portal. He realized it had made a mistake. This wasn't a door to a buffet. It was a door to a graveyard. The gravity of the dead universe was stronger than the gravity of the Naruto world. "I will not go alone," the dweller roared. It detached its tails from the walls and wrapped them around Naruto. "If I go, the vessel goes." Naruto felt the squeeze. His ribs cracked. The pressure was immense. Sasuke saw this. He saw his best friend being crushed and dragged into hell. He looked at his sword. He looked at the distance. He couldn't reach them. But he had one thing left, a small, insignificant thing. He had a summoning scroll, not for a snake, for a hawk. Sasuke bit his thumb. He smeared blood on the blade of his broken sword. He didn't summon the hawk to ride. He summoned the hawk inside the portal. The hawk appeared in the void. For 1 second, it existed as a point of mass in the vacuum. Sasuke used his Rinnegan. One last time. Swapping places was his nature. A Amenete Jikara. Sasuke swapped the hawk with Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi vanished from Naruto's grip. He appeared next to Sasuke, safe on the ground. The hawk appeared in Naruto's hand. The hawk died instantly from the pressure. Naruto looked back. He saw Sasuke and Shang-Chi safe. He smiled. It was the smile of the prankster, the smile of the boy who painted the Hokage faces. "Take care of the place," he mouthed. The dweller lost its grip on the floor as the god tree snapped. The monster, the rings, and Naruto were sucked into the purple void. The portal snapped shut. The sound was like a thunderclap that broke every window in the land of iron. Miles away, silence returned to the cavern. The black tree was gone. The roots were dead and graying. The oppressive weight in the air vanished instantly. Shang-Chi stood up. He looked at the empty space where the portal had been. He looked at his empty hands. The rings were gone. Sasuke crawled to the edge of the crater left by the tree. He stared into the darkness. His left eye was bleeding profusely. He had gone blind in that eye to save Shang-Chi. "He is gone," Sasuke whispered. The words felt like ash in his mouth. Shang-Chi walked over. He placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. He didn't offer comfort. There was no comfort. "He is not dead," Shang-Chi said. "The rings, I can still feel them. They are humming, but they are far away. Farther than any star I know." Rock Lee limped over, dragging the unconscious guy. Lee was crying, silent tears that cut through the dust on his face. "Did we win?" Lee asked. Sasuke looked up at the ceiling where the sunlight was starting to filter through the cracks. The grey clouds outside were breaking. The connection to the dweller was severed. The Jiangshi army would collapse. The corruption would stop spreading. "We survived," Sasuke said. "But the price was the sun." In the aftermath, the world was quiet. The snow in the land of iron melted, revealing the scarred earth. The surviving ninja burned the bodies of the Jiangshi. It took 3 days. The smoke turned the sky black, a funeral shroud for a generation. Shang-Chi sat on the wall of the fortress. He wore a borrowed cloak. He felt naked without the rings. He felt light, but in a bad way, unmoored. Sasuke joined him. He wore a bandage over his left eye. He looked 10 years older. "You said you could feel him," Sasuke said. "I can," Shang-Chi replied. "He's alive, but he is not alone. The dweller is with him. They are locked together in the void." "Can we get him back?" Sasuke asked. Shang-Chi looked at the horizon. "Not with chakra, not with technology. The door is locked from the inside." Sasuke gripped the hilt of his sword. "Then we break the lock." Shang-Chi turned to him. "How? You have no eye. You have no chakra reserves left. The tailed beasts are in hiding or gone." Sasuke pulled a small object from his pouch. It was a shard of the black crystal from the god tree. It pulsed faintly. "The dweller left a footprint," Sasuke said. "This shard, it resonates with the other side. If we can study it, if we can understand the frequency." "It will take years," Shang-Chi said. "Decades." Sasuke looked at Shang-Chi with a fierce, terrifying determination. "I am an Uchiha. I have time. And I have you. Me. You know the energy," Sasuke said. You know the shape of the soul that powers the rings. You are going to teach me. You are going to teach us, not how to be ninja, but how to be whatever you are. Shang-Chi looked at the desperate hope in Sasuke's remaining eye. He realized then that his mission wasn't over. He hadn't just fallen into this world to fight a monster. He had fallen here to change the fundamental nature of its defenders. I will teach you, Shang-Chi said. We start tomorrow. Far away, in a place where there was no light, no ground, and no time, Naruto Uzumaki floated. He was glowing with a faint orange light. The 10 rings orbited him slowly, creating a tiny sphere of warmth in the absolute cold. Across from him, entangled in the same gravitational drift, floated the dweller in darkness. It was small now, shrunken. It had spent its energy surviving the transition. The monster and the hero drifted in the silence. So, Kurama's voice echoed in Naruto's head. It sounded tinny, like a radio with a dying battery. This is the afterlife. No, Naruto thought. He looked to the dweller. The monster stared back with hate, but also with fear. We aren't dead, Naruto said to the darkness. He clenched his fist. The 10 rings hummed. They obeyed him perfectly now. We are just starting round 2. The threat was removed, but the heart of the world was taken with it. The story had shifted from a war of defense to a quest for retrieval. The physics of the Naruto world were broken, and the path forward lay in the synthesis of the 2 realities. The timeline had stabilized, but it was a cold, darker timeline, one where the sun was missing. 5 years had passed since the sky broke and the hero vanished. The crater where the Hidden Leaf village once stood was no longer a scar of black dirt. It was a lake. The water was dark and still, filling the deep depression left by the explosion. It was not a place for swimming or fishing. It was a graveyard. A massive stone shrine stood on the edge of the water, facing the center. There were no names carved on it, because there were too many to list. On the cliffs overlooking the lake, a new structure had been built. It was not a hidden village. It was a fortress of stone and iron, built with the architectural style of the Land of Iron, but the layout of a monastery. This was the Temple of the Unified Flow. In the central courtyard, 200 students stood in perfect rows. They did not wear headbands. They did not wear flak jackets. They wore simple grey robes. They were not practicing hand signs. They were breathing. Shang-Chi walked between the rows. He had aged. His hair was longer, tied back with a simple cord. He walked with a limp, a souvenir from the battle in the ice. He carried a wooden staff. He stopped in front of a young girl who was shaking with effort. She was trying to hold a ball of water in the air without touching it. She was straining, her veins bulging. "Let it go," Shang-Chi said quietly. "You are trying to command the water. You are treating it like a slave. But I need to control it." The girl gritted out. "Control is an illusion," Shang-Chi corrected. "The water wants to fall. You must convince it that floating is better. Do not use your chakra to grip it. Use your will to invite it." The girl exhaled. She stopped frowning. The shaking stopped. The ball of water didn't fall. It hovered, spinning gently. It wasn't being held by force. It was suspended by harmony. This was the new way, the way of the flow. Since the day of the disaster, the use of raw, explosive ninjutsu had been banned near the impact zone. The fabric of reality was too thin here. A fireball jutsu could tear a hole in the air and let the monsters back in. So, the survivors learned to be subtle. They learned the martial arts of Talo, adapted for a world of chakra. They became warrior monks. Sasuke Uchiha watched from the balcony. He wore a black eye patch over his left eye. His hair covered the right side of his face. He looked like a ghost haunting the living. He did not teach. He did not sleep much. He spent his days in the depths of the archives, decoding the shard of the god tree. Shang-Chi dismissed the class and walked up the stairs to meet Sasuke. "It is ready," Sasuke said. His voice was raspy, unused. "Are you sure?" Shang-Chi asked. "I ran the calculations 1,000 times," Sasuke said. "The planetary alignment matches the frequency of the shard. The barrier between our world and the dead dimension is thinnest tonight. If we don't open the door now, we have to wait another 60 years. Shang-Chi looked at the dark lake. 60 years meant Naruto would be dead, or fully consumed. "We do it tonight," Shang-Chi said. They gathered the council. Kakashi Hatake, now the leader of the alliance, looked tired. Sakura, the head of the medical division, looked resolute. Gaara and the other Kag were present via hologram. They were not there to help. They were there to witness. If this went wrong, if the door opened and the dweller came back, they had orders to vaporize the entire region. It was a grim failsafe. The ritual took place on the surface of the lake. Sasuke and Shang-Chi walked out onto the water. They didn't sink. They stood 20 feet apart. Between them, on a floating pedestal, sat the black crystal shard. It was humming. It knew its master was calling. Sasuke began to weave signs, but he did it slowly. He wasn't molding chakra for a jutsu. He was building a frequency. He channeled his lightning nature into the crystal, not to destroy it, but to vibrate it. Shang-Chi began to move. He performed the movements of the great protector. He moved the air around the crystal. He created a vacuum. The water beneath them began to boil. It turned purple. The reflection of the moon on the water vanished, replaced by a reflection of a sky with no stars. "Hold it steady," Sasuke yelled over the rising wind. A beam of dark light shot up from the crystal. It hit the sky and punched a hole. The noise was deafening. The sound of the universe tearing. The hole widened. It was a portal, swirling with violet and black energy. It was unstable. It wanted to snap shut. "I'm going in," Sasuke said. "We go together," Shang-Chi said. Sasuke looked at him. "Someone has to anchor the door from this side. If we both go, the connection snaps and we are all trapped. I cannot let you go alone," Shang-Chi said. "You aren't," Sasuke said. He pulled a scroll from his vest. It was old and tattered. It was the contract scroll for the toads of Mount Myoboku. Sasuke bit his thumb and slammed his hand on the water. "Summoning jutsu." A puff of smoke cleared. Gamakichi sat there. The giant toad looked older too. He had scars on his face. "You are going to summon a toad into a void?" Shang-Chi asked. "No," Sasuke said. "Gamakichi, you hold the line. You keep your chakra pouring into this crystal. If you stop, the door closes." The toad nodded solemnly. "For Naruto, I will hold it until I turn to stone." Sasuke turned to the portal. He didn't look back. He leapt. Shang-Chi followed him. They passed through the membrane of reality. It felt like being pushed through a sieve. Their bodies were stretched and compressed. Then, weightlessness. They floated in the dead dimension. It was exactly as Shang-Chi had feared. There was no light, only a faint, ambient, grey static. Debris floated everywhere. Chunks of rock, frozen bodies of ancient alien creatures, and the shattered remains of the god tree. In the distance, miles away in the void, there was a light. It was orange. It flickered like a dying candle. Sasuke propelled himself forward. In this place, thought was motion. He willed himself to move, and his body obeyed. Shang-Chi flew beside him, swimming through the emptiness. As they got closer, they saw him. Naruto Uzumaki sat in a lotus position in the center of a debris field. He was not the boy they remembered. He had grown. His hair was long, floating around him like a golden halo. His clothes were gone, replaced by armor made of solidified orange chakra. But the most terrifying thing was the rings. The 10 rings were not on his arms. They were embedded in his flesh. They ran down his spine, glowing with a pulsing blue light. And opposite him, connected to Naruto by chains of black energy, was the Dweller. The monster had shrunk. It was no longer a giant. It was the size of a man. It sat mirroring Naruto's pose. Its face was inches from Naruto's face. They were locked in a psychic stare. "Naruto," Sasuke whispered. Naruto's eyes opened. They were not blue. They were silver. He looked at Sasuke without recognition for a second. Then the memory clicked. Sasuke. Naruto's voice was projected directly into their minds. It sounded old, ancient. "We came to get you," Shang-Chi projected. "You shouldn't be here," Naruto said. His face didn't move. "The battle is in the mind. If you break my concentration, he gets out." The Dweller turned its head. It smiled. Its mask cracked, revealing a mouth full of needles. "Visitors," the Dweller hissed. "Fresh meat." The Dweller lunged. It didn't attack Naruto. It attacked the chain. It snapped the psychic link and flew at Sasuke. Sasuke drew his sword. He channeled Chidori. But in the void, the lightning didn't crackle. It drifted like liquid. The Dweller swatted Sasuke aside. It wanted the portal. It could see the purple tear in the distance. "No!" Shang-Chi yelled. Shang-Chi intercepted the monster. He didn't have the rings. He had nothing but his fists. He punched the Dweller in the face. The impact was silent. Shang-Chi felt his hand break. The Dweller's skin was harder than steel, but the force knocked the creature back. Naruto stood up. The movement was stiff. The rings on his spine flared. "Get back," Naruto commanded. Naruto raised a hand. The debris field around them turned into weapons. Rocks, ice, dead wood. They all sharpened and flew at the Dweller. The Dweller dodged, weaving through the storm. "It's too fast," Sasuke yelled, recovering his balance. "It has been feeding on the void," Naruto said. "It has evolved. It doesn't need a host anymore. It just wants a door." The Dweller was racing toward the portal. It was miles away, but the creature was accelerating. If it reached the door before them, it would enter the human world, and Gamakichi wouldn't be able to stop it. "We can't catch it," Shang-Chi realized. Sasuke looked at his empty left eye socket. He had one trick left, a trick he had been saving. He had implanted a seal in his own eye socket, a seal that contained a stored charge of his old Rinnegan power, harvested from the shard. It was a one-time use. Sasuke grabbed Shang-Chi. "Throw me." "What?" "Throw me. Use your wind style. Launch me at it." Shang-Chi understood. He grabbed Sasuke's hand. He spun. He used the martial arts technique of borrowing force. He channeled all his chi into the throw. Sasuke flew like a bullet. He surpassed the speed of the Dweller. He appeared in front of the monster, blocking the path to the portal. The Dweller roared and swiped its claws. Sasuke didn't dodge. He activated the seal in his eye. Planetary devastation. A gravity core formed inside the Dweller's chest. The monster screamed as its own body began to collapse inward. The debris of the void was pulled toward it. Rocks slammed into it, burying it in a growing sphere of stone. "It won't hold it for long," Sasuke yelled. "The seal is weak." Naruto arrived. He didn't fly. He teleported. He appeared next to the floating sphere of rock. "I know," Naruto said. Naruto placed his hand on the sphere. The 10 rings on his spine detached. They slithered off his back like snakes and wrapped around the rock sphere. They locked together, forming a perfect seal. "Open the door wide," Naruto yelled to Sasuke and Shang-Chi. We are leaving. Sasuke grabbed Shang-Chi and they flew to the portal. Gamakichi, on the other side, saw them coming. He croaked and poured more chakra into the crystal. The portal stretched. Sasuke and Shang-Chi shot through the hole. They tumbled out onto the water of the lake, gasping for air. The gravity of Earth felt crushing. "Where is he?" Sasuke yelled, looking back at the portal. The portal was fluctuating. Something huge was coming through. Naruto exploded out of the portal. But he wasn't alone. He was carrying the massive sphere of rock, bound by the 10 rings. He crashed into the lake. The impact sent a tsunami of dark water over the banks. The portal snapped shut. The crystal shard shattered into dust. Silence returned. The water settled. Sasuke and Shang-Chi ran across the surface of the lake. To the center, steam was rising from the water. Naruto stood on the surface. He was hunched over. He was breathing heavy, ragged gasps. The rock sphere was gone. "Naruto?" Sasuke asked. Naruto turned around. Sasuke stopped. Shang-Chi stopped. Naruto's chest was glowing. The 10 rings were no longer on his spine. They were embedded in a circle in his chest, fused into his skin and bone. And inside the circle of rings, beneath his skin, a dark shadow swirled. "He didn't leave it in the rock," Shang-Chi whispered. "He put it inside." Naruto looked at them. His eyes were back to blue, but they were dim. He looked exhausted. "It was the only way," Naruto rasped. "The rock wouldn't hold on this side. The laws of physics here. The dweller would have broken out in minutes. I had to become the jail." "You sealed it inside yourself?" Sasuke asked, horror in his voice. "With Kurama." "Kurama is the warden," Naruto said weakly. "The rings are the bars, and I am the building." He took a step forward and collapsed. Sasuke caught him. Naruto's skin was burning hot. Not fever hot, radioactive hot. The energy radiating from him was twisting the air. The water beneath Sasuke's feet started to die. The algae turned grey. The fish floated to the surface. "He is leaking," Shang-Chi said. "The corruption. It's too strong. I can control it," Naruto muttered. "I just need time." They took him to the temple. They cleared the students. They put Naruto in the deepest meditation chamber, lined with lead and chakra-suppressing stone. Sakura arrived within minutes. She tried to heal the burns, where the rings had fused to his flesh. But her medical chakra was eaten by the rings. She cried, but she kept working, bandaging the wounds with conventional medicine. Kakashi stood at the door. He looked at his student. He looked at the monster his student had become. "Can he stay here?" Kakashi asked. Shang-Chi shook his head. "No. Look at the walls." The stone walls of the chamber were turning grey. The corruption was bleeding out of Naruto, even in his sleep. "He is a walking dimensional breach," Shang-Chi said. "As long as he holds the dweller, he is a poison to this world. If he stays in the village dies. If he stays near people, they will get sick." Sasuke punched the wall. He cracked the stone. "We just got him back." Naruto opened his eyes. He was awake. He had heard. "Shang-Chi is right," Naruto whispered. He sat up. The rings on his chest hummed. A pulse of violet light shone through his shirt. "I can feel it scratching," Naruto said. "It wants to get out. It hates the fresh air. I have to go where the air is thin, where there is no life to hurt." "Where?" Sakura asked, wiping her tears. "The moon," Naruto said. The room went silent. "The Toneri transporter is still active," Sasuke said quietly. "I can send you, but it is exile." "It is a mission," Naruto corrected. "The ultimate S-rank mission, to guard the world from the thing inside me." He stood up. He swayed, but he stood. He walked over to Sasuke. He put a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. The touch sizzled, burning Sasuke's cloak. Naruto pulled back quickly. "I'm sorry," Naruto said. Sasuke shook his head. He didn't care about the burn. He cared about the distance. "I will visit," Sasuke said. "I have the Rinnegan trace. I can open a portal for a few seconds. I will bring you ramen." Instant ramen. Naruto smiled weakly. "The good stuff." Naruto turned to Shang-Chi. "You saved my world," Naruto said. Shang-Chi bowed. A deep, formal bow. "You saved all worlds. You are the great protector now." Naruto walked out of the chamber. He didn't say goodbye to the crowds. He didn't want them to see him like this. He walked with Sasuke to the transporter ruins. The machine hummed to life. A beam of light descended from the moon. Naruto stepped into the light. He looked back one last time. He looked at the ruined earth, the grey trees, the fortress of stone. He looked at his friends who were growing old while he had become something timeless. "Don't screw it up while I'm gone," Naruto said. The light flashed. He was gone. 1 year later, the Hidden Leaf village was being rebuilt, not in the crater, but on the plains to the west. It was a new city, a mix of high-rise technology and traditional wood. The streets were busy. Children ran with toy shurikens. In the temple of the unified flow, Shang-Chi sat in the courtyard. He was meditating. He felt the flow of the earth. It was healing. The grey spots were turning green again. The balance was returning. Sasuke sat next to him. He was cleaning his sword. "Did you see him?" Shang-Chi asked. Sasuke nodded. "Last night. He looks different. His skin is turning white, like the sage. And he doesn't speak much. He mostly just floats there, watching the earth rise. Is he winning?" Sasuke paused. He sheathed his sword. He says they are arguing. The dweller screams about hunger, and Naruto argues about the flavor of miso pork. Kurama laughs at both of them. "So, a stalemate," Shang-Chi smiled. "For now," Sasuke said. "But the seal is holding." Sasuke stood up. He looked at the moon. It was full and bright. If you looked very closely, with a telescope, you could see a tiny orange spark on the surface. A lonely lighthouse in the dark. "He is the Hokage," Sasuke said softly. "The Hokage protects the village from the shadows. He just has the biggest shadow of all." Shang-Chi stood up too. He picked up his staff. "Come, Sasuke. The new students are arriving. They need to learn how to punch a god." Sasuke smirked. It was the first real smile he had shown in years. "Let's teach them." The two masters walked down the steps into the courtyard. The sun was rising. The long night was over. The scars remained, and the best of them was gone. But the world continued to spin. It was not the happy ending of a fairy tale. It was the quiet, sturdy ending of history. The story of the collision was over. The story of the legacy had begun. The history books call it the era of the broken sky, but the monks of the unified flow call it the great correction. 30 years have passed since the exile. The world has healed, but it has not forgotten. The geography of the nations is different now. The land of fire is smaller, bordering the Great Grey Lake, a body of water that no boat ever crosses. The trees around it are still twisted, serving as a perimeter warning for those who stray too close to the residual radiation of the old war. Technological advancement jumped forward by a century, forced by the need to survive without relying solely on chakra. Humanity embraced science. Trains run on magnetic rails inspired by the principles Shang-Chi described from his world. Medicine is a blend of mystical healing and advanced surgery. The shinobi are no longer mercenaries for hire. They are guardians of the dimensional seals, patrolling the thin places of the world to ensure no other entities slip through. Sasuke Uchiha lived to be a very old man. He never replaced his eye. He spent his final years sitting on the porch of the temple, looking up at the night sky. He wrote books on the physics of the multiverse, texts that are now required reading for every academy student. When he finally passed, he did not die in battle. He died in his sleep, holding a bowl of cold ramen he had intended to deliver via a portal he no longer had the strength to open. His sword hangs in the main hall, next to the simple wooden staff of the master from the west. Shang-Chi eventually found a way home. The calculations Sasuke left behind, combined with the stabilization of the ley lines, allowed for a momentary bridge 5 years after the exile. He did not leave with fanfare. He simply bowed to his students, stepped through a ripple in the air, and vanished back to a world of Avengers and busy streets. But his statue stands in the center of the new capital. It does not show him fighting. It shows him breathing. His legacy is not in the enemies he defeated, but in the restraint he taught a world of killers. And above it all, the moon watches. It is not just a rock anymore. On clear nights, when the pollution is low, you can see it. A faint, rhythmic pulse of orange light on the dark side of the lunar surface. It is the heartbeat of the world. Mothers point to it and tell their children that the hero is still there, wrestling the monster so they can sleep. They say that as long as the light burns, the cage holds. Sometimes, astronomers report strange readings. They say the orange light flares up as if in anger or laughter. They detect massive spikes of gravity and chakra, colliding in the vacuum. But it always settles back down. The hero does not waver. He sits in the dust, eternal and unyielding, the warden of the ultimate prison. He has become exactly what he wanted to be, not a Hokage of a village, but the shield for an entire reality. The story ended, but the watch continues. The orange star does not blink.